Hello, it is MA again, and I'm just going to do a short video today to illustrate the reasons why for my daily morning tarot pulls, I tend to use either tarot challenges from Instagram that are like a month-long 30 or 31 day series of questions, or questions from within tarot guidebooks or general books of journaling questions, and why I use those when I do my daily reads. So I've mentioned before that for most of my decks, instead of deciding what I'm working with for the month, I have randomized my deck selection. And today I was instructed by pulling one of my deck of decks to use the Cosmic Sea Tarot. For oracles, I've lightened up with myself and I get to pick which oracle. So I haven't used this one very much, and I actually had a feeling that these two would have a good conversation together. So I'm going to put down the cards that I pulled, and I'm going to talk about them in the context of what if I didn't have a specific question in mind. And then we're going to look at the question that was in the tarot challenge for today and how that changed a lot of things about the reading. So the first card, I decided I would do one oracle, and I put that one down first. We have the Valley. And then I would pull 3 tarot cards around it. So we have the Nine of Discs, the Two of Probes, which is Wands, and the Magician. I'll just move these up a little bit. Now, if I did not have a question in mind, I can make a perfectly decent reading for myself out of this, and it would be along the lines of goal setting and planning, with this being the end result of me, happy with what I've achieved. The Two of Probes is the planning. This Valley is the path to where I'm going to. And with the Magician, with this particular illustration, where it's, the head kind of split in half, I could say either I need to integrate my right and left brains, or I need to kind of tunnel through all the other stray thoughts and ideas that I have going on and just, follow my goal through the valley to complete it. Nothing wrong with that. And then, of course, I would have to sit and think about what that goal might be for today. So I think that's a pretty basic and, to me, at least today, obvious interpretation of what ended up on the table. Now, I will tell you that the journal question for today, or the prompt, was, what keeps me from acting freely to make my own conscious decisions? What keeps me from acting freely to make my own conscious decisions? So now a couple of things are happening. Now, these cards that I have put out are not being read as steps, they're being read as barriers, right? So now it's almost like I have to read every card in shadow. And the other thing that's happening is it mentions what I have to do to make conscious decisions, which for me implies there's something subconscious going on here that's also an issue. So how am I going to overcome what's going on subconsciously to make decisions? So now I have a completely different reading of these cards, and maybe one that's a little more useful for me on a very broad basis rather than on a specific what am I going to do today basis. So now the way I would see these cards, to, kind of generally speaking, is this Nine of Discs, instead of being an end game, is me in my comfort zone. And from work that I've already been doing and things I know about myself, of course, I'm reading for myself, so I'm bringing in self-knowledge. I know that I have a reluctance to leave my comfort zone. And I believe from reading this reading, what it's bringing up for me is that because I don't like to leave the comfort zone, it can limit my thinking into kind of a duality, a safe path. And once I get to a point in the path, for one thing, where I can't see where it's going, I start to get a little uncomfortable. And that tendency of mine can kind of get me stuck only seeing things in black and white thinking. Or I also, and this is something that came up in yesterday's prompt to remind myself, I do have a subconscious tendency to be stuck in worst case scenario thinking. And that's one of my drivers. Is I think it's in many ways I have anxiety under control, but anxiety lives in me and affects my thinking in that way, that I always assume the worst thing is going to happen. And sometimes that does keep me on the safest path. And what would happen if, instead of staying on this path, what if I could climb up that mountain and get a bigger view? Maybe I don't have two choices. Maybe I have infinite more choices. And my subconscious is actually propelling what I think is a conscious decision is actually being driven by other subconscious factors, if that makes any sense. And I also thought it was very interesting the way this magician illustration with this path through the brain imitated this illustration of the valley. So as an example, I'll just give an example. At some point in my near future, and I mean the next 5 to 10 years, I will be at a point of retiring from my job. Right now, I'm in my comfort zone. I've been at my job for a long time. I make a decent living. There's a lot of things in my life that I don't have to worry about right now because of that work. The way my worst case scenario brain starts to take control is, right now I'm comfortable. So if I leave that job, I'll be out on the street. You see what I mean? I'm instantly like, I have to stay on this path. All I can see is like, the part that I can't see is a disaster. Now, that's really limiting. First of all, that's not a useful state of mind. But that's how my brain works. And it's really helpful for me to be reminded of that I am not currently making plans for that situation other than saving money. I'm not looking into other opportunities to supplement my retirement income. I'm not doing anything about it right now. So saying that if I leave this job, now I'm out on the street is not a useful course of thinking. It's helpful for me to know that that's subconsciously where I instantly leap to. And that's something that I'll always have to work on. So nice reminder for that. And what I've been doing, I write my journal. Tarot journal is very messy. But what I do is I write down the cards I pull in one color. I write down my journaling thoughts in another. And then what I do and what I will do with this, because I'm doing a challenge that's a little more on the shadowy side, I will reframe this reading into an affirmation that I'll keep in the journal to work with. So I feel like having those other questions that someone else has formulated in front of me, and where I'm not really giving myself the opportunity to squirm away from it, not only is giving me better self-readings, but it's also pushing my reading abilities, because these are cards I would not have thought, if they all came up together, I would need to read them all in shadow. And it's just a good exercise. It's a reading stretching exercise. And that is why I do it. And that's all. Just wanted to think about this out loud. So thanks for watching if you did. Bye.